All right, welcome everybody to another session of the OutSystems user group in Australia. Good evening to our friends in Australia, good afternoon to our friends in Asia, and to those of us like me who are in Europe, good morning. Hope everyone's having a nice time so far. Today we have an exciting topic from our friends who came from Amsterdam, and they're going to be sharing their insights on the One conference that was really exciting and had so many new updates for us. So I'm here to introduce our superstar, Ossama Ghanem, who is an OutSystems principal and senior delivery consultant, MVP, and an OutSystems trainer as well. And he's joined by our other superstar, Charl, Enne, who is the head of technical advisory at PhoenixDX. So thank you both so much for joining us today. And without further ado, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you. Thanks, very flattering introduction. We'll appreciate it. Good evening, good afternoon, wherever you're joining us from. Thank you for jumping in. Today, Charl and myself are going to be trying to bring you up to speed onto our experience from one earlier this year. It's only been 2-3 weeks now, but it feels like a while back to be fair. But we had the pleasure and honor to actually be there in person and listening to all the new exciting announcements that have been made. OutSystems have been stepping up the game, if I can describe it that way, in terms of the event itself and the atmosphere and the excitement that's building around these announcements, which has been super cool to be there for in person. Would you agree, Joe?
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And the one thing, Joe, when you say it was 3 weeks ago, and I mean it feels like it was ages ago. Also something to be aware of that I was processing when we were there. It had only been 8 months since the last one.
Sure.
And it felt like over a year. I think also that's a bit of a testament to how much is going on in the world at the moment. We're all seeing the pace of change in multiple different areas, and I think it was an interesting kind of adjacent reflection on how OutSystems has had to move so much as well over those 8 months. So you could just see the pace that things are moving, exactly like Ossama said. So yeah, it was exciting stuff. So we'll talk about it more.
For sure. Thanks, mate. So, team, we have a high-level structure of how we want to walk through and talk along some of these announcements, but we want to keep this more of a conversational sort of type of session. It's not going to be slides with text and sort of presenting items here. The Aussie way, laid back, a bit of a conversation. Like Jules said, please grab a drink. If you feel that you want to raise your hand, ask a question, want to add into anything we're talking about, please, by all means, feel free to do so. Very, very chill afternoon we want to have with you today. So
yeah,
the high level view is we've just broken this down into 3 sort of segments. We'll just touch on just our experience on very, very high level from one perspective. How did it feel being there on the ground and some of our experiences there? But we'll then delve into some of the key announcements. There are 3 really key primary. There's a lot of announcements to be fair, but 3 main announcements that have been introduced this year. All of them directly affecting the platform itself and the strategic direction that OutSystems is going in. So we'll delve into those. And then there's a few other announcements that Charl and I put together that we found fairly interesting, to be fair, that we found to be very relevant, not only for us from a PhoenixDX perspective, but just generally within OutSystems point of view. Those other announcements don't really encapsulate everything else, of course. They're just things that we've sort of cherry-picked. We found that be pretty cool, but heavily encourage you to actually catch up on some of the other announcements. There is an on-demand sort of playback of these sessions that OutSystems is now circulating online. I will drop a link to that at some point during this call if you're interested. You'll be able to see all of the keynotes and all of the community sessions as well, recordings there. So it'll be a good resource if there's something specific from the agenda that you might have seen that you're keen to actually watch back. You'll have the ability to do so.
Yeah. And and to that point as well, we said at last year's One conference as well, So Ossama has been going to one for a while as well. From my side, I think this was my 12th or 13th year now inside OutSystems. So I've been lucky to see, the announcement kind of cadence and the sense of big things as they go. Last year, you could already see there was an uptick in terms of the amount of activity and big announcements that were coming at last year's one. And I'll say this year, even more. And the reason I'm saying that, to Ossama's point, when we were preparing for the session, we were trying to pick what we actually wanted to talk about and fit it into 40 odd minutes. There's no way we could get through everything. So for sure, we'll call out what we thought was useful and interesting points. But I totally agree. There'll be other areas with a whole lot of depth that we might just skim across, and happy to talk to you about it more. It was huge. Yeah, it was big.
Again, reading the ask from earlier, if there's anything that something we don't cover and curious if it was mentioned or brought up, please drop it in the sort of comments here in Google Meets, and we can just answer it on the fly. Alrighty, cool. Maybe a super quick high-level introduction about ourselves. Charl, my friend, want to go first?
Yeah, sure. I've kind of given most of it away. So I'm Charl, Enne. I head up technical advisory in Phoenix. So yeah, that can mean a few different things. So helping with our expert services side of things, looking after the pre-sales side, and really helping with the advisory elements of how we lead into building great projects with our customers. Just from a personal background perspective, like I said, I've been in the OutSystems ecosystem. This is now year 13, I think, or 12 or 13. So I've been very lucky to see the evolution and growth of it and where it fits in. I was in Africa helping the Africa Master Reseller for a number of years before joining Phoenix. So yeah, happy to bring that into the mix. And yeah, good to meet you all.
Awesome.
Over to you, OG.
Very quickly about myself, I've been in the OutSystems world for just over 10 years now. I'm an OutSystems friend, as the OutSystems profile likes to call it, since 2016, and currently an OutSystems MVP. I've been blessed enough to be able to attend a lot of these conferences live in person. Had the opportunity to speak at some of them as well. But it's been super insightful to see the journey OutSystems has been on since 2016 until now. Also projecting to see how they're going to be progressing in the future in terms of how the platform is evolving. We've sort of lived through a lot of the major milestones of the past 10 years and applying them to our projects, like going from OutSystems 8 to 9, and then mobile development, reactive, and now ODC, of course, and then all the AI stuff. So it's always been a passion of mine, to be honest, low code and OutSystems specifically. So super glad to be here. If there's any questions, please let us know. Feel free to connect with us on LinkedIn. More than happy to continue the conversation over there. But without further ado, let's kick things off. So the one experience, I mean, we've got a few pictures here to try to help visualize how the experience was and the atmosphere was at one. You can definitely feel it was very, very electric, as I like to describe it. There was a lot of excitement all around. Like I said, OutSystems has been doing a really good job when it comes to these setups and bringing the community together and raising that excitement, and all for good reason, of course. I mean, the stuff that's been being released has been super, super cool. But Charl, would you agree with that?
Yeah, no, I think it was impressive, and while I was reflecting on it again, sometimes, and I've seen it at some of the one conferences over the years, where you tend to have quite a lot of partners there because they're interested in what's going on, and maybe not as many customers. I'll say this time there was a really good representation across all sides. We can see that customers of the platform were really interested in seeing what they could do next. There was strong engagement there, where OutSystems was being very intentional about, if you were a customer, setting up time with the executives to be able to talk about what's going on, or the head of product, and understand roadmap and things like that. So because of that, the energy was a really good mix of, okay, people that are want to help with implementation, and then customers that are actually taking value from this and really thinking about how it could work for them. And that buzz then really came into the energy that Whitson and the team bring to the stage. So yeah, I think it was really well done.
Fully agree. It definitely felt that there was something for everyone. So whether you're a partner, you're a customer, you're a developer, even if you're new to OutSystems, it definitely feel that it was welcoming to all. And just the community being the community helped with that, of course. But from an announcement point of view and walking through some of the latest and greatest when it came to OutSystems, it definitely felt that it brought everyone together. which was super cool. There was, and we'll get into numbers in just a second. There was over 4,000 attendees. I believe the final number was 60 plus sessions. So there was a lot that was shared, and you can also felt the excitement from OutSystems themselves as well. So they'll be calling OutSystems product manager, for example, up on stage, and they'll be high-fiving each other and going through their event. So you can definitely feel the energy around, which was really good to see. Really good to see.
Yeah, and I'll say off the back of that as well, because we know some of the people that were behind the scenes as well. You go and see them afterwards, and they said it's been the most intense 3-4 weeks leading up to it, just because of the pace of preparation of what they were doing and trying to get all these sessions together to showcase what they were doing. Yeah, so they were happily exhausted at the end, I think. But yeah, it was a lot of effort went into it.
For sure. One nice change that was very welcome this year versus previous years. If you weren't aware, there's a swag store that OutSystems used to set up in these conferences, where you can just rock up and buy OutSystems swag, which is cool and all. However, this year round, they introduced a stamp system where the more you attend sessions and the more you interact with partners on the exhibition floor, which you're seeing over here in this picture, the more you get involved with a lot of the events that are happening on the floor, you start collecting stamps, and then you can actually cash in your stamps for swag. So I think the highest prize was a jacket or a hoodie, I believe. But you can,
it was like a quarterback. Yeah, it was like a quarterback jacket type of thing.
It was a very high community. I have a few friends that were able to get it in like the first 2-3 hours of the event.
Yeah, that's crazy.
How did you even do that? Anyway, but that built a lot of engagement. That built a lot of engagement as well, and lifted everything up. So it was, again, super cool to be there. And one quick thing before we jump into the actual content that I really like about that systems community, it feels like everyone knows everyone, in the sense that we're not talking about, especially the attendees here, we're talking about 4,000 attendees, but even wider than that, the OutSystems world is all connected. So you bump into people in person in one, which you might have come across in projects that you've worked with in the past, whether that's OutSystems employees themselves or just other partners or customers that you've interacted with. And it's really good to share these experiences in person and talk about what have they been up to and the platform itself. So really enjoyed it. Just in numbers, essentially, we just mentioned 4,000 plus attendees, 60 plus sessions, all available on demand, by the way. Now, I mentioned that in the past, but again, I'll find a link and drop it at some point. Across 56 countries, representation from 56 countries coming into this event in Amsterdam. So very cool. Looking forward to 2026. Charl, my friend, should we jump into the content?
Yeah, let's go for it.
Let's do it. Alrighty. I think the primary thing to start off with here is, and something that OutSystems has been setting up, not necessarily starting this year, but even the year before, there's definitely been
coming for a while.
Very big shift in terms of, we've all known OutSystems for the past 5-10 years now as a low-code platform, visual development, and that's sort of the branding that it associates itself with. And despite it still being a low-code platform, nothing changed there in essence. However, given the latest advancements with all the agentic capabilities that it's been introducing around it, OutSystems has now definitely been pushing the vision of it being an agentic systems platform, somewhere where you can not only build AI capabilities, but govern and scale them on an enterprise level. So we found a lot of conversations, Charl, that where OutSystems starting to go from this low-code platform to we're now an agentic platform.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. And what I'll say is, I think that the world has shifted so much. I mean, we all know this. We're all seeing what's happening. But really, what AI and the speed of being able to do vibe coding in the app gen side of things, or the generative and evaluative side of things, or bringing agents into the work that we're doing, we jokingly say, I think I was chatting to one of our Uber drivers, and he was telling me about how he'd installed OpenClaw on his home computer, and he didn't come from a coding background, and he was spinning up applications for his family to use. So, the kind of democratization to an extent of development, it's been there for many years, but it's gone even more now. And because of that, the shift in the focus of where OutSystems brings value. It's not that it's moved away from what it did before, exactly like Ossama is saying, low code and the underlying speed and the ability to handle high-speed development at an enterprise scale and then handle the DevOps side, that's still foundational. And you'll see when we come to some of the pillars in a moment. But what that means in terms of how it unlocks and allows organizations to stand on that as a foundation, almost as a non-negotiable, and then use that to really bring this enterprise lens of what agentic means to organizations. I think that's really the shift, and they're embracing that. And you can see that was 100% a big part. I didn't hear low code mentioned once. Doesn't mean that visual development or high-speed development or well-structured deployment goes away. All of those things are still there, and they're doubling down on it, and we'll talk about it. It's just really leaning into that future path, and I think, that's how they're keeping themselves part of the future, which is good.
Spot on, mate. Spot on. I think one thing that we found OutSystems did very, very well here is it stayed very true to their roots. OutSystems do not have to go through an entire sort of re-foundational journey to make sure that they're aligned to this agentic future. No, they actually leveraged the platform to what it's made to do best, still keeping that low-code development at its core, but building these systems around it to leverage its strength points to be able to deliver what has been announced and what we'll start going through in a second. So it's been really good to see that. You'll see in the next few slides here that we're going to be sharing a few pictures that we've taken of some of the key slides, I guess, that were shared in the event itself. Again, by the way, the actual keynote itself that all of this is from is available on demand. So if you wanted more of a extended version, exactly playing back what happened there, feel free to refer back to that one. So were you going to say something?
No, all I'll add is you can see here when I offered this photo, I intentionally didn't use the one from the main keynote. This was actually from the day before when we were at the preview. And so the two things I wanted to say, there might be some additional things that are relevant if you're a partner that we're happy to talk about, which just isn't super interesting on the customer side, but we're happy to talk through that. The other one here is I wanted a picture of Liam, even though if you saw this, his eyes are slightly closed. So that's Liam Doyle. He's Aussie by birth, but I think he lives in San Francisco now, and he's part of the leadership of the product management team at OutSystems. And the reason I wanted to put him up there is I'd encourage you to follow and look out for anything that he puts out on LinkedIn related to OutSystems. His way of thinking about the future and how it all kind of sticks together. Obviously, along with the normal leader thinkers like the Goncalos and the Pedro Oliveras and all that. But yeah, some really, really good practical thinking behind how they're steering the product roadmap. So yeah, just wanted to call that out.
Awesome stuff. Thanks, Charl. I think what might be a good idea before we actually start delving into this, we wanted to show you a snippet of what was shared in the keynote, sort of the introductory video to what you're seeing right now. So what you're seeing right now is 4 layers in this agentic system that OutSystems has been put together. There is a video that they've shared, and I've got it here, and I'm keen to play it back to you, which actually gives that introduction as well. So let's play that first, and then we'll discuss a little bit more. Please let me know if there's any audio issues, by the way, but hopefully.
Enterprise AI adoption is accelerating. The investment is real. But as usage grows, so do the challenges. Fragmented tools, unpredictable spending with unclear ROI, and increasing governance and security risks. Without the flexibility to choose, these problems only compound. That's why the future of enterprise AI can't depend on a single model, cloud, or ecosystem. It requires a platform built for enterprise complexity, one that understands your business, unifies systems, and enables governed AI at scale. Introducing the OutSystems Agentic Systems Platform. It's powered by the Enterprise Context Graph, a live operational layer of context that gives AI an understanding of how your business actually works. This gives you the freedom to use the right AI tool for the job without locking you in. Build anywhere, using OutSystems or your preferred tools like Claude Code, Codex, and Kiro, and then bring everything into one governed lifecycle with Agentic Systems Engineering. This unified approach enables your teams to innovate and modernize faster. With Agentic Enterprise Orchestration, you can seamlessly coordinate agents, apps, and workflows. Swap models to continuously optimize for cost and performance, giving you full control and pricing leverage as AI evolves. And for business leaders focused on ROI, Agentic Industry Solutions enables enterprise-proven AI adoption while accelerating time to value with pre-built agentic systems designed for your workflows. And with OutSystems Digital Sovereignty, you get the flexibility of multiple trusted deployment paths. Deploy AI workloads wherever sovereignty, regional, and industry requirements demand. The enterprises that lead in the agentic era will be the ones that maintain control, with a clear path to turn AI into impact. The future of enterprise AI is open, governed, and built for change. Own your agentic future with OutSystems.
Righty. So, team, just emphasizing here some of the things that we had. So, of course, the biggest driver that we're realizing at the stage is, and one of the great strength points of this strategic shift is having everything consolidating. A lot of the things that you would have typically done when it comes to AI development, rollouts, etc., governance, wrapping it all into one place. What OutSystems is trying to achieve here is trying to minimize a lot of the friction, if I can call that, when it comes to, I need to use AI tool number one to be able to develop, and then I need to integrate with this second tool to manage my DevOps, and then I need this third tool to be able to apply my guardrails. I need tool number 4 to be able to do some testing on my AI agent and then evaluate its performance. What OutSystems is trying to achieve here is trying to put all of these together in one shell on an enterprise level. Would you agree with that description, Charl?
Yeah, I totally agree. And even going left of that on, well, how do we bring agentic into the legacy modernization agenda? How do we actually help discover legacy code and bring that in and use agentic to bring it through, and then control that and use our enterprise context graph, which we'll talk about more in a moment, to accelerate how I modernize these applications. Other things as well, which and I'm kind of in my mind, I'm calling it AI 2.0, but I'm sure there's a better word for it, which is the maturity statement that you could sense at the conference was vibe coding and agentic app generation and putting agents in and all that. It needs to move out of the experimentation side of things and innovation agenda, and it actually needs to move into a meaningful, okay, well, how do we actually defend the business case behind rolling these things out? They were sharing some horror stories, and I think we've all seen that ourselves a little bit, where, okay, you get excited about, either using Claude Code to spin up some coding stuff, or you spin up an agent to do work for you. And all of a sudden you get the token bill at the end of the week or at the end of the month or at the end of the day, and you've blown through hundreds of dollars. I mean, they had an example there of a customer, and I don't want to get the number wrong. I mean, we were talking like $500,000 in the month. Not one of their customers, another organization. They spent $500,000 because they just had unrestricted token consumption, and then all of a sudden things fell apart. So part of the tooling that's in there is even how do we keep track of the cost of the agents? How do we make sure we've got the most appropriate agent for the work that we need to do, so that the cost and value benefit is clear? Agent to agent, they talk about A to A in there. So really thinking about what it takes to make this enterprise ready, to make it sustainable, and not just the super exciting part of AI, but actually the sustainable part of how it's going to deliver value to the business.
Very exciting stuff, fully aligned. Let's start peeling the onion here and talk about the different layers that we saw at the start and what's making up this agentic platform. Starting off with the first one, which is agentic system engineering. So as you may recall, and as it is currently right now, and will continue to be fair, Mentor has been the primary way of developing OutSystems application if you want to do it via conversational AI sort of approach, or quote unquote vibe coding. You'll be able to create applications, whether it's directly from within ODC portal. You can alternatively you can prompt Mentor via the Mentor's specific dashboard, or even within the application itself. So you'd be working on ODC application, you can prompt mentor throughout it. Now, one of the key announcements and changes, and I think the one that's gonna make a lot of people happy here is OutSystems has announced that it's going to open up that side of the platform to allow integration with other AI development experiences to be able to build OutSystems applications within those experiences. So, for example, we'd be able to build OutSystems applications via Cloud Code, for instance, or via Cursor. OutSystems is going to be, based on what they've been saying, OutSystems is going to be sort of doubling down and ensuring that all of this sort of MCP setup that's going to be required, and they did mention, I believe, 43 or 49.
40, I think 43 might be right. Yeah.
Yeah, 43 MCP skills that have been built and currently in early access, where it's going to enable that integration between Cloud Code and Cursor and Cloud Code, and OutSystems. And the opportunities here become truly massive because naturally you would find a lot of these capabilities already within being utilized within DevOps cycles that customers already have outside of OutSystems. Plugging OutSystems into the equation and leveraging the platform, leveraging what the data that the platform holds as well into those processes is going to be significant.
Yeah, and totally agree. And what I'll add to that as well is, and I don't know if we have a specific slide for it, so I'll just preempt Ossama, which is the concept of the enterprise context graph, which I think we've mentioned before, and some of you might have heard about it already. But really, I mean, enterprise context graph is not an OutSystems term. It's a kind of an AI field term, which is really, if you want to develop meaningful applications that are relevant to your organization, what you want to try and do is reuse assets that you already have. Now, those assets inside your organization could be existing databases, existing integrations. It could be existing style guides. It could be existing processes, whatever it is. The power here is that if, like a lot of the people were at the conference, if you've been an OutSystems customer for more than a year, and a lot of them had been OutSystems customers for 20 years, what you've actually built up there is a phenomenal foundational context graph of a whole lot of things happening inside your organization that either using Mentor or plugging into Claude Code or Cursor or Codex and other things coming as well, Kiro and all those types of things. That actually allows you to move from, okay, we're vibe coding and we're prototyping side of thinking about a new idea, to actually it being able to assimilate into what matters inside your organization, using the existing assets, using the existing governance, and actually deploy things out quicker. Because the problem that we're seeing around the world, a lot of us, is yes, you can generate code, that's great with AI, but how do you actually get it out into production? How do you ship the code? Where we were talking to one of our customers there, I won't say who it was specifically, but they run a large enterprise. They've seen a lot of vibe coding out at the edge where people are putting cool ideas together into a dev prototype, but they can't actually deploy it because the architectural board will stop it immediately, or the security board will stop it immediately. OutSystems can act as that conduit of going from idea into the release. So I think that was pretty cool.
Spot on, mate. Spot on. There was a couple of really, really powerful demos that were made along the same lines in the event itself. Plus, there was in some of the community sessions as well, there were some demos around that which showcased some of the use cases that could be this capability could be utilized for. One cool one that I recall was there was one use case where they used Claude Code to be able to analyze an existing OutSystems application in order to map out its dependencies, map out its core components, to be able to build out the architecture. You can see a use case like that being very relevant. For example, someone's being onboarded very newly into a project, maybe documentation about that particular OutSystems application or solution is limited. Utilizing an approach like that to be able to break it down and then maybe have Claude generate documentation on the basis of that could be something super, super powerful. Again, this is one example. There's a lot of super cool things here. Another stream of capabilities, and Charl very touched on that a few minutes earlier, that was also covered as part of this announcement, is the legacy modernization aspect. So one demo that OutSystems showed on stage is the ability to now leverage this capability to integrate with other tools, like for example, AWS Kiro, to be able to drive legacy modernization projects. The way they've sort of structured it or framed it, there's sort of 3 steps as part of this legacy modernization journey. You've got your analyze step, where the agent will actually look at the legacy code base, analyze it, and then move it over to an architect agent. And this architect agent will analyze sort of those findings that the analysis agent spit out, and then re-architect it to align with what could work within our OutSystems platform. And then finally, that would then be passed over to Mentor, where then it'll be built. Now, of course, saying all this is way easier than actually implementing it in practice. So naturally, this process is going to be there's going to be a lot of human interaction in it, and naturally within legacy modernization projects, you won't expect to have one button. You give the legacy code base, you press one button, and then generate the OutSystems app ready to ship. It doesn't work that way. I wish it worked that way, but it doesn't work that way. There's a lot of human interaction that goes throughout the workflow, and the dashboarding that OutSystems showed and the UI tool that will be orchestrating that heavily involves whether you're a BA or a developer or an architect, in terms of ensuring that when we're going from one step to the other, things are being verified. So definitely a space to look out for at the moment. This legacy modernization stream supporting COBOL and Lotus Notes, but there is a release cycle that OutSystems is going to be sharing in terms of what are the other legacy sort of technologies that are going to be adapted as part of this capability. Okay.
Yeah, spot on. And on that note, Ossama, just kind of adjacent, is everything that was announced was either being demoed immediately, so it was real, it was being showed. It wasn't just kind of vaporware. There was the intro, and then there was the tool, and so you can see there's a ton of work happening. And what that means is that at the very least, a lot of these announcements are either early access already. So some of you on the group might already have early access to for example, the Claude Code MCP plugin, or they're only 1 or 2 quarters away from full release. Okay, so none of this was, oh, here's an idea and then that's it. There was always a committed timeline on we're actually going to release this out as well. So, and that was across a whole lot of things, not just this area. It was everything else that was there. Another one I saw, so I've put up a question here. So have OutSystems announced any limitations as to what these future MCP integrations to things like Claude Code or Codex can and cannot do? Like Ossama said, at the moment, there's 43 APIs and MCP server calls in there already to allow a fair amount of work. Now, I don't think there's an intentional limitation there. I think they're just expanding out the capability as they go. For those of you that know Maria Martins, who she's from OutSystems ANZ. She used to be a solution architect. She's now part of the product team as well. I saw another side demo that she did where she was showing how she plugged Claude into an OutSystems instance, and she was using it to document some information, do some legacy modernization from old OutSystems 11 traditional web code into the more modern reactive code. So even just doing internal modernization within the platform, and then even doing things like extracting out some of the OutSystems codes to do analysis on it and do work on it. So there was quite a wide range of MCP capability there already, and that Claude interface. So Asaf, yeah, happy to share more with you on that. But they're definitely going full hog on the open platform side of things.
I am fairly certain. Oh, there we go. As you were going through this, I was looking for the official announcement on what these skills are, what these API calls are. I will drop here in this chat the official OutSystems GitHub, OutSystems MCP GitHub repository, where it's going to have all these things, and where OutSystems is going to be continuing to grow these API calls. I'll drop it right now. Cool. Alrighty. So that was the first piece of the puzzle, agentic system engineering. It did set the stage very well, did get people all very, very excited. But the excitement didn't stop there. So we then moved on to talking about the second piece, which is enterprise orchestration. And I found that specifically very insightful and pretty cool, to be honest, because as we're sort of progressing generally in the industry with AI adoption and AI agents, etc., we're finding more and more when we talk about best practices and having an agent to be able to execute a specific action, we're finding more and more use cases where it actually makes sense for your use case not to be one agent, to be a fleet of agents, multiple agents. And this is, without delving into a lot of details into agent architecture, etc., this is a pattern that's becoming more and more relevant and actually becoming more and more best practice when it comes to building AI agents. You want to build an AI agent that's specifically focused on a specific task, rather than having one AI agent doing absolutely everything that you want it to do. So with agentic enterprise orchestration, OutSystems has now introduced a new layer of governance when it comes to agent orchestration, enabling you to which does not only elevate the existing agent capabilities that the platform had with Agent Workbench, but also the agent-to-agent capabilities and spinning up multiple agents, whether that's, by the way, OutSystems agents or agents built outside of OutSystems, how to get them all talk together pretty seamlessly. And there was a lot of things here that were highlighted, again, as Charles said, as part of a demo, not as just talked through as part of a slide deck, that they've actually showcased. And we've got a few here that I wanted to talk through. But just before I do, Charles, do you want to add anything on that?
No, I think I mentioned before about how they're leaning into making it sustainable for enterprise, and for actual, meaningfully tracking things and making sure that all the guardrails are there and monitoring that. So yeah, this was spot on with that.
Perfect. There are four main categories of functionalities, if I like to call it, or capabilities that they're introducing as part of this new orchestration layer. Touched on the first one a little bit, guardrails. So they're expanding the ability to be able to implement guardrails for the agents that you develop within the platform. There's going to be a lot more granularity when it comes to configuring, what the agent can do, what it can do, which is, of course, super, super welcome. Limitations as well, limiting what the agent can potentially spit out, what sources it can tap into, etc., etc. But also another very cool thing that they demoed was evals, or evaluation. So now natively within the platform, you can have the ability to test the agents that you develop with real life scenarios before you actually release them in production. One of the main challenges that I'm sure a lot of organizations face when they're trying to productionize an agent is potentially the lack of production data, or the lack of full coverage testing when it comes to ensuring that the agent is built to do what it's supposed to do, and it's not going to do something that's not supposed to do. Because we all know that customers and just users in general are going to try to, they say an AI agent, they're going to try to see what it can do, even though it's not supposed to be doing what they're trying to ask. So super cool feature that's now going to be built in as part of Odyssey portal is evals, and that's going to allow you to pass through use cases into your agent to test its behavior. And it will also run sort of like an automated test suite, if I can describe it that way, where you're going to pass through scenarios into the agent, and you're going to dictate whether, what's a thresholds in sense of what is going to be an acceptable answer, what's not going to be an acceptable answer, etc., and run that quote unquote test suite in order for you to actually test that agent before you turn it on in production. I found that super, super cool.
Yeah, I totally agree. It's like unit testing for agents, basically. So, trying to bring deterministic guardrails to non-deterministic agents. That's really, really good. I agree. And then you can see a dashboard, and they showed where it failed. And when it failed, then you don't let the agent go out into the wild. So I think that was good. Another thing I'll add there, and this was something that was already announced, I think pre one, it was in an older release set, which is actually the ability for agent learning and agent evolution to happen as well. So you can bring that improvement in agents kind of as they continue to go in the wild, but that's a slightly different topic. But yeah, we've seen those things happening already.
I believe.
Just keeping an eye on time as well. So yes. I know we've got. We knew we were going to run out of time. So
for sure. I mean, just to be fair, there's a lot to go through. Super quickly on this before we move on. The actual screen that you see on the slide, that's a screenshot of that eval dashboard. You can actually maybe barely see that there's actually a lot of aspects that are being tested for each of these test cases. So from a governance perspective, from a safety perspective, and if it passes all of these tests, then you'd be comfortable to be able to productionize it and sort of enable it. But I'm sure OutSystems will be sharing way more on this as it rolls out, but that was one that caught my attention for sure. And then finally, the third pillar here is agentic industry solutions. And I think for this one here, one of the main drivers for OutSystems is actually, before we do that, what is agentic industry solutions? Essentially, agentic industry solutions is OutSystems pre-packaging capabilities, functionalities, if you like, within, to put it in the most simplest term, as sort of a Forge component you can download, where you can have a very sort of advanced starting point for a use case that you want to build. So in this particular instance, they demoed loan origination, if memory serves right. Bank,
correct. Yeah.
Yeah, loan origination, where a customer has actually already productionized this specific component in their use case. They actually showed us this demo, and then at the end of the demo, they told us, just to let you know, by the way, this is not just a normal Forge component that you can start modifying. This is actually something one of our customers is currently using in production. So what it's going to allow you to do is download these pre-built applications around these agents, and then you download them, you configure your agents, you tweak it if you want to, and then you'll be good to go. Just accelerating that process.
Yeah. The one thing I'll add here as well, exactly what Ossama was saying, they're really leaning into being able to bring accelerators across multiple industries. So sure, there's a banking one, they've got a whole roadmap of other ones. Again, I think we've seen in the past some interesting stuff on the Forge, like an example app or a demo app and things like that. And those were all good. And my first thought when I heard that announcement was, okay, maybe it's just more demo apps and it's not going to quite fit. But again, at that partner event, there was a really deep roadmap on them thinking about how they're going to make these accelerators really meaningful, really at enterprise scale, and really encapsulating really strong parts of the process of a business. And there's a whole journey there. They acknowledge that they can bring certain acceleration, but their partners need to be involved as well, because there'll be expertise either at the partner level or in the customer level to accelerate those things. So they're really taking it seriously. It's not just a bunch of accelerators they're dumping out to the Forge. Yes, that'll be part of the componentization, but it's really part of a wider program of actually building out these industry solutions. And another thing I'll say is part of it is agentic, but they're going to give you the parts that aren't agentic as well, because of course you still need the end-to-end process around what loan origination means, as an example, and all the others that are coming. So they're really doubling down, and I think, yeah, personally, I'm excited by that. I've been waiting for that for 10 years. There've been a few false starts over the years, but it looks like there's a meaningful plan around this. So yeah, I think it's really cool.
Yeah, it did seem very clear that OutSystems is going to be investing a lot of effort in this stream. So like you mentioned there, Charl, at the moment, the only use case for this is the loan origination use case, but there was a few other use cases that they've highlighted to come in future quarters. So expect to be a suite, I guess, of these components, functionality, apps, if you like, to come soon, where you'll be able to just download it into your Odyssey portal, connect the agent or the model, I guess, connect to the model that you want to configure it to.
Yeah.
And then press the green button. Alrighty. Moving on to some other, I guess, before we do that, that's sort of the three big primary announcements that OutSystems focused on in their keynote, in the primary keynote. The session that followed that was a bit more of a product deep dive, which I would invite all of you to check out when you get the time. And speaking of which, I was able to get the on-demand link, so I'm going to drop that right now in the chat. So when you get a chance, jump onto this link. You'll see that all of the 126 sessions are now on there. So feel free to recap. The product deep dive was a really good one to further unpack some of the announcements that were made in the keynote. So highly advise you to check these out. But in this last section here, there's a few other announcements that caught our attention that I wanted to share with you. So let's go through those first. Charl, my man, go through these.
Yeah, I'll. You've been speaking very well. I'll jump into some of these. So this is when I say in no particular order. What I mean by that is, depending on what matters to you, some of these will be more exciting than others. So one of the big announcements was finally self-hosted with ODC is being announced, and now self-hosted obviously means you can bring your own cloud, plug it in there. Obviously, still a lot of it is AWS centric, but you can control it. There was also a lot of focus there around what that means in terms of sovereign cloud, government OutSystems, government clouds, and those types of things. So, really starting to think about where there are protected clouds that need to be thought about. That's with self-hosted ODC. I think I'll jump very quickly then to the third point because it's related, which is their announcement around FedRAMP and GovRAMP compliance. So GovRAMP medium compliance is immediately out now. It's already done, and FedRAMP compliance is coming. So for those of us in the region here, if you're in ANZ, things like IRAP compliance then can be accelerated by things like having FedRAMP and GovRAMP in place. And I'm sure there are other equivalents for Southeast Asia and those kind of regions. Around the second bullet point, 10 times of all the execution limits in AWB. So AWB is Agent Workbench. So whatever limits there were, whether it was the pre-bundled free 10, I think there was 1,000 monthly executions that you would just get for free. That's now gone up to 10,000. And if you had paid, all of that got multiplied by 10. So I thought that was really good because if we bring in more agents, we need more executions. The point there afterwards, which was really great, is almost like AOs and users. They don't count executions in dev and non-prod environments. They only start counting it in prod. So that, in terms of sandboxing and experimenting and really driving that in, that's a massive investment from OutSystems. I thought that was really good. The second last bullet point, which is OutSystems 11 monitoring and analytics improvement. Again, for those of us who've been around for a long time, we were all excited when the AppDex dashboards came out 10 years ago. It did really cool stuff. But that's kind of slowed down a little bit along with all the enhancements that have been coming. There was a really good deep dive, I think, by Pedro Oliveira, diving into the enhancements that they're bringing to the monitoring and analytics in O11, and then obviously that also feeds into the fundamental analytics in ODC's roadmap path as well. And then the final one, which is about evolving the Forge. So of course the Forge, as it is now, is kind of an open source code repository for OutSystems and third parties to contribute to is all great, but there's always been a sense of lacking for it in terms of being a meaningful marketplace and a meaningful place where people that have invested in creating componentry or accelerators or tool sets where they could have their IP protected and actually have some kind of a revenue stream behind it. They're really stepping into this now. And again, we've heard this a few times over the years, just to be blunt, but I've seen the plan that I saw there and the actions that they're taking. There's a really meaningful plan there and they're driving that forward. So I thought that was good and just worth noting. So maybe not as sexy as some of the other stuff we've seen, but I thought these are quite meaningful steps forward. OG, I don't know if you wanted to add anything to that.
Maybe the only thing I would add is for the self-hosted ODC that's available now, as OutSystems put it. So if that was something that you are interested in or believe that aligns more to your strategy, to your IT strategy or enterprise landscape versus cloud, feel free to reach out to TSM, CSM. They will be more than happy to talk you through it, but that's available when they announced it in the keynote, which was really cool. And one other super quick one before I move to the next slide is it was really good to see OutSystems 11 getting a lot of love in that conference. So one of the things is what I just mentioned there. Thanks for that, Charl. The O11 monitoring. That's more specifically on the lifetime when we went to analytics for. Now it's going to be for reactive and for mobile, which really nice introductions. But also, OutSystems is going to be releasing OutSystems 11 skills as well, where you can integrate with your to be able to use AI agents to be able to pull data from your existing O11 instances. So yes, a lot of the stuff that we're talking about here, actually most of the stuff is ODC. However, they are creating the ability to be able to agents to interact with OutSystems 11 applications and data as well, which I found to be eye-opening, to be honest. Really, really cool to show a lot of love to O11. Okay, very quickly, the last couple of slides here. So mobile development. So one of the things that I had very high up on my list going into the one conference was super keen on how mobile development is going to look like in ODC. We had OutSystems did a really good job with native mobile development in O11. I was curious to see if everything's going to be moved over, is going to be enhancements. So some of the things that we've captured on that regard. One, there's going to be a dedicated mobile UI library for ODC for mobile dev that's going to include Think of it like an updated OutSystems UI, if you like, specifically made for ODC, for native mobile development. 2, there's going to be a front-end SDK, which is going to be releasing open source. If there was any components, UI components, and that's mobile and web, by the way, that do not exist out of the box, for example, or you don't want to customize in OutSystems, you just want to create them via the SDK, OutSystems is going to release the SDK for you to be able to create those, which is super, super cool. OutSystems is going to be also releasing AI skills to be able to convert Cordova plugins to Capacitor. So for a bit of context, native plugins or native mobile development was based on top of the Cordova ecosystem. For O11, it's going to be Capacitor for ODC. There's a lot of great Cordova plugins that we currently have in the Forge that are being utilized. Rather than reinventing the wheel, OutSystems is going to be releasing AI skills to be able to convert these Cordova plugins to Capacitor plugins, so you can use them in your ODC mobile applications. Very welcome. Change or introduction, I guess. Mentor, of course, will be able to generate native mobile applications within the platform itself, exactly the same as how you used to do it in, ODC will be able to generate native mobile applications platforms, exactly how you used to do it in 11, but on top of that, Mentor will have the ability to do that as well. So at the moment, prompting Mentor, you can build web applications when you prompt Mentor. You're going to be able to build native mobile applications when you prompt Mentor. iOS testing, so you'll be able to test with iOS natively. This is on Mac only, but you'll be able to test on iOS natively without needing to generate certificates or provisioning profiles, which is a massive time saver if you've ever done iOS development. Just procuring these certifications and provisioning profiles can take a while. So a big win there. And then distribution. So with OutSystems 11, if you wanted to distribute via the app stores, you'd have to generate the app in OutSystems, download the APK or the IPA file, take it to Play Store Studio, Google Studio, Developer Studio, or Apple Studio, and publish it via the store there. Odyssey is going to integrate all of that within the platform natively. So you're going to be able to actually take it to the public Play Stores immediately within the platform. You're going to have to do all that manual moving around of the APK or IPA file anymore. And finally, some Mentor enhancements that are worth noting. We mentioned the native mobile app one before on the previous slide, but Mentor will also have the ability to generate test cases or even test suites. So if you're familiar with the BDD framework in the Forge, Mentor will be able to actually now generate something very similar to that by just prompting it within the application. You'll be able to say things like, I've got this particular functionality. I want to be able to generate a test suite, which I can test these specific server actions or that logic, and I want to be able to run these test cases when I publish. For instance, Mentor will be able to build those just from prompting it with these things, which is going to be a game changer when it comes to unit testing. I believe very heavily used. In addition to that, we'll be able to verify functionality that you've built by referencing a user story, for example. So you'll be able to, within an OutSystems and ODC application, you'll be able to open Mentor. You'll be able to paste a user story that you might be working on. In the user story, there might be acceptance criteria, and you'll be able to ask Mentor, is the logic that I've now built as part of this application that I've got open adhere to the acceptance criteria of this ticket that I'm building? And it will be able to say, well, yes, you've got this logic, we've tested it, and has all of these capabilities. Or it'll say, well, it seems like you've missed this particular acceptance criteria because of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So again, doubling down on this sort of unit testing on the development stage to catch any scenarios prior to going to the testing stage. And then finally, building on top of that is actually finding bugs and fixing bugs. So you'll be able to say to Mentor, well, I've got this particular capability on the screen and it's not working for some reason. I'm getting this behavior. Mentor will be able to analyze and diagnose what's happening. And if you want it, it'll be able to implement the fixes directly in ODC portal. So you'll be able to fix these bugs right away. So really cool stuff here. Mentor is only going to become more and more powerful, which is always nice to see.
Absolutely, and yeah, you captured it well. The just last one or two things I'll add. So the first one is Mentor Studio. So Mentor in Studio, I think they're sometimes called Mentor Studio. So a lot of us have seen Mentor where you fire it up out of ODC portal and you start generating an app. what we're talking about here is Mentor inside the IDE, inside ODC Portal, inside ODC Studio. If you haven't played with that, I would encourage you to do it, because I think some of this is functionality that's coming, and some of it is actually functionality that's probably there, but it just takes creative prompting to get it done. We saw some interesting stuff if you ask the right questions. In our team, we've seen some really interesting stuff being done inside Mentor Studio. So I'd encourage you to go and even play with it as it is right now, and ask it some questions that are outside of just traditional, create a button and do that. The second thing I'll say to the last point that Ossama has there around find bugs and fix bugs. We saw a demo where they were using it to re-architect part of the application as well. So they said, okay, well, we've made a change where we're not integrating this way, we're now integrating that way. So please go through and find everywhere where we were doing a CRUD lookup and now rather drive it via an API. I'm probably not doing it verbatim what they did, but you can also go and re-architect parts of the application. So I thought that was pretty powerful as well. So yeah, definitely look out for that. Okay, we're at time.
Yeah, we're at top of the hour. Only expect better and better capabilities that Mentor will entail. But this brings us to the top of the presentation. If there's any questions, I'm more than happy to stick back to answer them. Again, feel free to connect with us on LinkedIn. More than happy to keep the conversation going there. And keep a lookout, because I'm sure there'll be more and more articles that OutSystems officially roll out, following on to the announcements from one. So those are going to be key. And finally, I know I've mentioned that a few times now, but I'll mention one last time. Feel free to check out the on-demand recordings from the conference itself. I dropped the link in the chat. It'll be your go-to if you wanted to play back any of the keynotes or the presentations from there. Okay. Perfect.
Yeah, perfect. And reach out if you have questions, and we're happy to talk to you about it more. It was great.
All righty.
Thanks, OG. Good job.
Thank you, my friend.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Ossama. Thanks, Charl. And thanks, everybody, for joining again. If you have any questions, let us know, or email us, or message them on LinkedIn. Thanks, everyone.
Have a great evening.